Welcome to the Hiring and Empowering Solutions podcast. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. And if you're a first-time listener, hopefully you'll become a long-time listener. As always, I'm your show host, Molly McGrath, and you can find us at www.hiringandempowering.com. Right there, you can join our blog, get many of our weekly value bombs, in addition to joining our twice weekly podcast. On Tuesdays, we have Tuesday's transformational tool of the week that I will walk you through a very specific tool that will support you in growing and nurturing your business. And as always on Thursdays, we have our weekly Trendsender and Industry Trailblazer interview, which I'm so excited about today's. So today's topic is sales is not a dirty word. And attorneys, I know you're cringing because you're worried about what the bar associations and the ethics committee and blah, blah, blah is going to say. No, do not stop listening. This is for you. We always transcend this word into relationship. Put whatever word you need to put in there, relationship building, etc. But at the end of the day, if you have no sales, you have no business. So today we are having Alesha Bahr, an international sales closing coach focused specifically on the 90% close. She's not interested in anything but, and her whole focus is in regards to making certain that you do get that close. So Alesha, welcome. Thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you so much for having me, Molly. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. So Alesha and I met. Alesha, I'm so fortunate. She is in the Denver area as well. And we have a mastermind that we lead every Thursday. And Alesha joined our mastermind a couple of months ago. And from the second she walked in the room and she said, well, I'm an international sales coach, the entire mastermind shifted right to her direction. And I think our mastermind used to be 90 minutes every week. And after Alesha's first meeting of joining, we're like, this thing needs to be 2 hours. And then we're like, well, what about a half-day retreat? And everyone was just clobbering Alesha because you're just such an expert in this arena. And I'm so grateful that I get to have you in my group every week.
Thank you, Molly. That is so nice. I am honored that you guys invited me. I love going.
Oh, it's so great. So I think let's hit it. Tell us a little bit about your backstory and what makes you an expert and passionate in this arena around the mighty word of sales.
Yeah. So since the beginning, I have sold digital marketing services, and I sold for a lot of the big media companies like Cox Media or Intercom. I sold for the Denver Post. And eventually I got tired of the companies I worked with not delivering on client promises, which is an issue with corporate in general. So I opened my own agency and I sold and executed on everything. And after a while, I, got to the point where I grew as much as I could with the network of contractors in me. And honestly, I kind of missed sales. I never thought that I would be a salesperson. And I have really great news for you. If you are not the typical salesperson, if you feel like you're not, cut out for it, you'll probably be even better at sales than someone who's like, I'm great at sales. So yeah, I decided to start helping people, really redefine their relationship with sales, because I also realized after digging into the training that's out there is that a lot of it is really bad.
Mm. Yeah. And, tell us a little bit about, if you can, well, let me back up. So many of our listeners are selling personal services, and largely they're referral based, which is music to your ears. I know we've talked about this a lot in our mastermind, that people will come to you and they're like, I need sales. Help me. And you're like, great. Tell me about lead generation. Tell me about the number of people that are calling you to book initial consultations, discovery meetings, whatever your terminology that people use. And when people say to you, well, I don't have any leads, that's why I'm calling you. And the misconception between marketing, i.e. lead generation, and sales, i.e. having a lead and closing it, right?
Yeah. So I do help with every part of the process, as far as like what your offer is, pricing, the messaging behind it, and then, how you get somebody on the phone, the questions you ask before you get on the phone, and then when you're on the phone and the pitch and the follow-up. But the only thing that I don't do is lead gen, because that is a completely separate thing. So ideally, you want to have some type of system in place that is regularly bringing you leads for you to have a sustainable and scalable business.
Yes. Yeah. And what I love so much about working in the legal space and coaching and consulting with small solo law firms is even if they don't have a marketing budget and or lead generation, many of them are what I call social workers at heart. They can have an ability to connect with human beings. They come from a place, they always start with heart, at least the attorneys that I work with, because if they don't, then I won't work with them. And they have an ability to connect. And obviously when you're in the legal space, there's a high need when people are calling you. So the beauty for our listeners and the people that I work with is that they do have leads. They do have a referral base, and sometimes they're not very good at nurturing them. That's a whole nother subject. But the challenge that I hear is that, and when I start going through people's calendars, already talk to me about how many, and I'm going to use the word, I'm just going to use it because it's a theme of the podcast, sales not a dirty word. Tell me about your sales meetings. And they squirm around that term. And because they're worried about, truly it is a thing, they're worried about the bar association, the ethics committee, which is not true. It's just head trash between their ears. So they have these warm leads, which is exciting because they have the close half in the bag. But when it comes time for them to get in the conference room with people, that's where they shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah. So one thing that I think is unique about me as a sales coach too is that I don't think that sales is a one size fits all. A lot of the training out there is like that. So depending on your audience, your personality, your industry, and what you're selling, your sales process is going to look a little different. What works for you to get a 90% close rate is going to be different from what works for somebody else selling different. Even a different type of law is going to have a different type of audience that you talk to. So I would definitely dive deeper if I worked with somebody into the type of personalities they work with and what they're comfortable with and that kind of thing. But generally speaking, my understanding is that lawyers don't even realize that they need to be good at sales. They go to law school and they get out and then they learn that they have to find their own clients. And that's really scary. And it's amazing that there are warm leads, but I'm guessing that one of two things happens. Well, probably both of them happen. The lawyer goes into the meeting and feels like the person already hates them or thinks that they're going to be too expensive, and that it's a scam. And the other thing that's probably happening is that the lawyer is speaking in really technical terms that are specific to like legal language, is what I would guess. So
I'll add a third one to that, actually. Both of those are accurate. So they're walking in already with a limiting belief that they're not going to trust me, and or they're going to already think I'm too expensive, and or whatever kind of horror story they have of a previous attorney that they worked with. You're absolutely right. Or number two, they come in and they go right down to the technical legal tunnel where a confused mind says no. They're overwhelmed. They're a deer in the headlight. Look, and the third thing I'd add to that, Alesha, is that they're walking in, and because they're bringing those two backpacks of fear, for a lack of a better term, in the conference room, they're trying to debunk that I'm not a sleazy salesperson or I'm not, a crook or whatever head trash you have about it. And then they're over providing value. So they're walking in, and instead of trying to get deeply curious about the person's, what's waking them up at 2:00 in the morning, they're coming in with verbal vomit and just offering all these tips, techniques, and value. And then the person feels like they don't need to hire them because they got so much greatness in that sales meeting.
Okay. So yeah, I also know before we got on the phone, you mentioned that they also like lower their fees, mood pricing or whatever.
Mood billing. Yeah.
Mood billing. So before you walk into any meeting, I think that you need to have a minimum rate that will make this worth your time. Because if you sell something at a rate lower than you are happy working with, you're going to be resentful and not do a very good job for your client. So knowing that, have the minimum rate in your mind. And when you walk in the meeting, try to put everything out of your mind about what they think about you or how you need this to pay the bills or, what this client would mean for you or any of that, and focus entirely on the other person. So you're going to want to understand their situation intimately and beyond just the legal situation. So it's really important to find out what their past experience was. So I know that there's fear that they had a bad experience with a lawyer, but the best way to address that would be to ask about it. So have you ever worked with a lawyer in the past? What was your experience? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? And then when you talk about your services, you can address that in their words. And you also want to find out what the goal of working with you is. So are you trying to, get a certain amount of money back? Are you trying to, I don't know. What are the other? I think.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that. So, guys, if you're listening, for our listeners, make sure you take note of that. I love that question of what has been your experience in the past, and allow them to hand deliver those words. And I'll even give you some bonuses for that. Those are words you can use to speak into your marketing, because they're giving you your marketing message as well. So be really present. Don't already be in your head trying to defend that. Don't go all courtroom on it. Just really be present so you can speak into it and say, so what I heard you say is X, and then really be present with that and acknowledge them for, I love that part, Alesha. And then, they're selling either that they can save them money, they can protect their family, they might be in a crisis mode where they have a DUI or bankruptcy or something of that nature, or something that is proactive and they're protecting, doing estate planning or elder law or things of that nature, regardless if it's a quote unquote emergency and or a crisis, or if it really is a crisis, like I need this to be fixed or else I'm in a big heap of trouble. Regardless of whatever one of those situations it is, it's something that is highly emotionally charged, and they're coming to you for a solution, because nobody wakes up in the morning and says, what am I going to do with my day? Why don't I go see an attorney?
Right. So a lot of times, what helps people is to remember that the person you're talking to is a human just like you. And they have a problem and they are hoping that you can solve it for them. They would be thrilled if you could offer a solution to them. So the relief would be immense. So to remember that when you're going in is that you're talking about solving a problem. You're not talking about selling something. You're solving a challenge for this person. So that can kind of change the dynamic of the meeting. And you want to come from a genuinely helpful place, not in the way that you over deliver information, but in the way that you deliver the information. It's like, I totally understand where you're coming from. And you always want to reference previous clients if you can, especially if they had similar situations, not by name or company, because I know that there's, legal regulations around that. But yes, we worked with somebody who had a very similar situation to you, and we were able to do this for her. So I know where you're coming from. We know exactly how to address it, and always connect everything you're talking about to the solution that they want. So don't just talk about how you do like a full legal review. Say, we do a full review of this, that, and the other. So we make sure that you're covered from every angle and never are never vulnerable to being sued or something like that. You want to connect it to the solution. Otherwise, they don't know why they should care about the thing that you're talking about that you do for them.
Mm. And one thing I know, Alesha, that you have helped me so much with is, I'll call it like a 3-prong approach in regards to, and I know many, many of our listeners, whether you're an employee facilitating that intake call on the phone and or facilitating the conference room meeting, that initial sales meeting, or you are the entrepreneur or the business owner, 3 things that I know you have helped me tremendously with. Number 1, facilitating the meeting and how to really get control and facilitate that initial discovery meeting, whatever your term is for the sales meeting, so you can get all goals accomplished in regards to whatever you need to get them to a place of decision at the end of the meeting. The second one is how to actively listen for objections so you can speak into their listening in a way that makes a difference for them versus communicating how brilliant and smart you are. And then the third thing, which you've really helped me with, is talking about this is what I hear from attorneys all the time when I go through their calendar and their numbers is they didn't close the deal because the person needs to quote unquote think about it. So can we unpack, I know for our listeners, if we could unpack these 3 secret strategies, solutions, whatever you want to call, can you help us a little bit today with number 1 of unpacking all 3 of these?
Yeah. So I can definitely imagine that when a lawyer goes into a meeting, depending on what their services are, that it can get kind of personal and the person can start talking about stuff that's not really relevant. So you don't want to be rude. It's hard to feel like you're not being rude if you get them back on topic. But a way around that would be to say, I understand and I want to make the best use of our time and your time. So your time is valuable and I want to make the best use of it so that we can solve this for you and have a plan moving forward. So tell me about this part and ask the question that you need to know so that you can get off the topic of them talking about their 3 divorces or, the thing that they said to them last night or whatever is irrelevant to the information you need to know. And then the other thing is to check in frequently. So when somebody says, let me think about it, that means that's a polite no. It means that you didn't overcome objections that they had. And the best way to overcome those objections is to check in with them frequently throughout your conversation. So after you mention a piece of what you do, ask them does that make sense? Does that sound like it meets your needs? Does that sound like it would be helpful for you? So that if they have an issue or a question with something that you're saying, they can bring it up right then and you can address it right then. And do it after each thing so that by the end, there aren't any objections because you would have uncovered them all. But if for some reason they end up still saying, let me think about it, I would say, okay, is it because, the investment is, things are a little tighter for this kind of investment right now? Or is it about time? Or is it about, and ask them specifically a couple of questions so that they can then tell you what they need to think about basically. And since price is such a big issue for legal services, I think selling marketing services is also something where people are like, oh, this is going to be so expensive. What you're explaining, I could just know it's going to be so expensive. So really early on in the call, after I'm talking about a few things, I like to say, what is your budget for this kind of investment? What did you have in mind? And they might not be able to tell you an exact number, but you can also give a range. Were you thinking 2,000 to 5,000? Or for lawyers, maybe it's mentioning the hourly rate. You can kind of get a temperature of where they are on that so that by the time you get to the end, you can really sell into the value of that and you're able to offer the price that they're comfortable with or have that conversation after they tell you kind of what their investment level is. You can say, okay, well, maybe if we cut out this part and this part, we could do it for that price. But, I really, it obviously is best to do those things, but would that work for you? You can it's more of a discussion then instead of I'm selling you something. It's part of the discussion. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. So what I love about it is the facilitation. So that's the first thing that I had I know that attorneys really struggle with. They'll have an hour meeting, and I hear this from staff members all the time. They go over in every single meeting, and I have the next client waiting in the conference room, and then they don't even handle, they come out with no engagement agreement. Then I have to schedule another meeting, or I have to follow up endlessly because they ran out of time, what have you. I love that you said it's not rude. And I think a lot of times as human beings, especially as attorneys, they're trained to be active listeners and to be issue spotters. And so a lot of times, and most of them are, as I had shared with you earlier today when we were speaking, most of them are highly, highly analytical, the attorneys. So they have an appreciation for the backstory. I think I said to you, going back to Adam and Eve or kindergarten is really important for an attorney. When I'm on the phone with attorneys, they'll say, they'll go all the way back in time. I'm like, time out. Like, let's start with present tense, and then I'll facilitate and tell you what pieces of the past are important to accomplish the goals you want. So I love that you said a few things. You're not being rude. And I would even add to that people are coming to you because they assume you're the expert. Human beings understand that becoming a lawyer is no small feat at all, and that someone just didn't hand you a degree. They know what it takes to do your expertise, your craft, your art. So when they get in the conference room, and think of yourself when you hire a professional, you show up and you go do a discovery meeting. If it's a financial advisor or if it's someone you want to hire for marketing services, you don't know what you don't know. It's not your gig. So you show up and you're expecting they're going to tell you how this is going to go. And people will just talk and talk and talk until somebody navigates it and facilitates it, because they assume, all right, well, if this person across the table has allowed me to just keep going, I guess what I'm saying is important and relevant. And we all know like 80% of the time it's not. So they're expecting for you to facilitate and navigate that conversation. It's not being rude. So I love that you really gave our listeners permission to really own that and to shift their mindset and do that 2 millimeter shift from being rude or arrogant
and a way to say it that doesn't feel rude, because at the end of the day, they want to get it done in an hour too. They don't want to just go on. I mean, they want to solve their problem more than they want to go on and vent about stuff.
Yeah.
Therapists, they would make an appointment with a therapist if they needed that. So, positioning it like I want to be respectful of your time, it makes it feel a lot less rude.
Yeah, and I love it. I love that analogy you used of a therapist, because, sitting on the proverbial couch, they don't even let you just sit there and ramble. They're like, it's a 50-minute appointment, time's up. You hear that all the time. Same with doctors, physicians. For whatever reason, it is acceptable in the medical space. And I push hard for the legal space to adopt that mindset that the medical profession, it's just customary for. So you're exactly right. They're just as worried about the time as well, and they want to get their goals accomplished. So your job is to be a facilitator. I love that. I love that. And the need to think about what I love about what you said about the powerful questions. So doing those frequent check-ins, and I really want to highlight this. And when you are talking about, okay, why are you here today? What brought you here? You allow them to dump out their heart and start talking about it while you navigate it. I always tell people, think of it like they're dumping out the junk drawer, but it's also your job to organize the junk drawer and or at least show them a path of how it can be organized by hiring you. So just frequently checking in. I love that. And having some powerful questions and anchoring it to your process. I know it was intentional because I know what you do in your 10-week program. That's just so powerful, but it isn't very intentional. Make it about the process versus the solution attorneys, because you are problem solvers. But when you make it about the process and using the buzzwords of the strategies and the tools, that you do bring out of your toolbox throughout your process, it's really gonna help solidify it for them how much more they need you for that service.
Yes, but you do want to connect it back to their ultimate solution. So it's to explain why you want to make it clear why you're telling them this part of what you address is because I want to protect you from anything that could possibly happen. Or this is so we can get you the most money possible. Or just so they still hear that their goal is constantly a part of your strategy.
I love that. I love that. That's great. Great. And that is right there is so critical because what you're doing is you're also communicating to them that I hear you.
Yes.
You're not just using all these different, like I said, buzzwords, but you're reflecting their words back to them, which is their ultimate goal and what keeps them up in the middle of the night.
Exactly. They want to feel understood. If they don't feel like you understand them, they're not going to feel like you can help them. So using their language is definitely it's the most powerful way to show them that you understand. And even taking it a little further, sometimes when you ask somebody if that makes sense or if that's clear, you can, and this might be a little more advanced or nuanced, but sometimes you can see in their face or their tone of voice that they didn't. You can be like, are you sure? Because your tone of voice sounds a little like maybe not. And then they'll talk about it. And they do appreciate you digging deeper. Some people just feel very strange letting you know that what you're saying isn't perfect. Like people just want to agree, So it doesn't do you any favors if they just agree with you, though, because then you don't know, because they'll say no. If they're agreeing verbally, but inside they're like, no. You need to know what they're saying no about. So to be able to dig deeper, if you see an expression or you hear something in their voice, to say are you sure? And then really find it out so you can overcome it and you are much more likely of closing the business.
I love that. I love that because attorneys can resonate with this. A lot of times I'll say they belong to all these different bulletin boards and message boards and listservs of attorneys in their area or in their expertise in their fields across the nation. And I'll say to them, well, post that question, especially if it's a technical legal question, post that question on the listserv. And they won't do it because they're afraid of looking stupid or that they don't understand something. I know, as crazy as that sounds, but as you were just talking, because a lot of times pay attention to the verbal, the face, the deer in the headlights, the confusion with your client. And when I like what you said, when they say, yes, that makes sense, or yes, I do understand, I am following, but their body language and everything else, their energy is saying differently. What I love, you can say, are you sure? Another thing that just popped into my head that you and I had talked about in the past is, what about that made sense, just so I can make sure that you really understand it. And that will, again, bring out more objections and allow for you to peel away that layer of the onion. So don't gloss over those verbal cues. It's, your greatest job in there is to be fully, wholly present.
Yeah. I mean, if you gloss over them, you are very likely going to lose the business because there is something that's not resonating with them and you can see it on their face. So you want to figure out what that is. And also maybe even address at the beginning of the call or in the middle of it when you're asking these questions. I think a lot of times, especially with lawyers, people might feel like they sound stupid. So say, I don't expect you to understand everything. If there's anything that doesn't make sense, I really want you to point it out to me so I can clarify it for you and put it in layman's terms. You are very, very smart and good at what you do. And it doesn't make you any less than that you maybe don't understand, in-depth legal regulations. Basically putting them at ease. You're not stupid. If you have a question, I need to know. And I'm not going to think you're stupid.
Yeah, I love that. And giving them permission to interrupt you as well, that this is a conversation. It's not a presentation.
Exactly. This is a conversation. Absolutely.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so in regards to need to think about it, I love what you said in regards to power questions. What further information do you need? You know, this one thing that I always love that I say, what information are you not seeing to make an informed decision? Or once you leave here, where do you feel that you're going to get the information to support you with making an informed decision out there? And that really helps people to really think about it, that it's not, I need to think about it. So, quickly, can we talk about what if it is about price? How do you, because you and I talked about that. You're like, a lot
Yeah.
of people say it's never about price, but you're like, I push back a little bit on that. It's a real thing for people. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it totally is. I think that's crazy. Like, it just, I feel like that type of thinking, it makes people feel like, oh, it's because I wasn't good at selling. It's me, it's my offer. And they feel like shit about themselves.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I mean, think about you. Sometimes you're like, oh, damn, that's not in the budget. And it just like really isn't. Like, you'd have to tell me that you're going to get the moon out of the sky for me and put it in my pocket for me to like go into debt for it, and you don't need to say that anyway. Um, the thing with lawyers, though, is I think that if somebody is trying to talk to you about legal services, they know legal services aren't cheap. So in the case of legal services, I don't think that and they probably asked their referral how much you were. I'm sure that that was a question. Like, well, were they so expensive? So I don't think it's as much of a thing with legal services just because like you shouldn't be contacting a lawyer if you're broke. You just shouldn't do that. But hopefully part of your conversation, like in the middle of it is kind of like, so what was your budget for these services? Or you can even ask if they've had like a past experience with a lawyer and this is the result they got and blah, blah, blah. Like how much did that end up, how much was that investment? So you can kind of gauge like, where they would be comfortable. And I think it's nice to seem like you're being considerate of their budget. And I mean, if in the middle of the conversation it sounds like they really can't afford it, I think you should be like, I want to make the best use of your time. And unfortunately, I think that this might be out of budget for you. It sounds like it's out of budget. So I don't want to waste any of your time, basically. That's why I think it's so important to know the minimum that you're willing to accept. And if you really do this mood billing, like it can adjust, you want to let them know that that's what you're doing. So you can say like, look, it's usually 500 an hour, which, this type of project takes X amount of hours, making it this much. But I really believe in your case. I think you'd be a fantastic client. What you're saying really resonates with me. So I think that we could do it for $350 an hour, which would save you and ultimately $10,000. Does that sound like more comfortable? Is that in line? Again, checking in with questions. Is that more in line with what you think? And I don't want you to just do that from the get-go. You definitely should only do that if it looks like the investment is scaring them on their face. And I mean, ask like, is budget tight for that right now? Yes. Okay. Well, how much did you have in mind? Because you don't want to just discount just because they're trying to get a better deal. Also, like you don't want to do that either. But definitely make your best call. If it's a client that's seems like they're going to be a total pain in the ass, I would not do it unless they pay the higher rate. If it's someone you really want to help, I think that it is very persuasive for them that you are working with them. You just need to let them know that you're doing that for them so they can appreciate it and consider it.
Oh, wow. All right. So you said a lot there. This is my takeaway that I know will resonate with our listeners. So, number one, if you're seeing halfway through the meeting that they can't afford it, you have full permission to not waste anyone's time and to just name it right then and there. And then they get the opportunity to opt out and or end the meeting and or say, I can't, but I need this. And is there a way that we can work together? And that gives you the opportunity to discern if they're an A plus client, like they're not this helpless case that's going to run your team and your resources and your profit and everything into the ground. So paying attention to that. Love that. When you're sensing it, name it, and then you can have a really healthy production productive meeting, and or you can all decide to and shake hands and end it. The next thing you said that this is so true, and I really want to highlight this for our listeners. People know that they're going to pay for legal services, and attorneys say to me all the time, oh, they're tire kickers. They're coming in. They just want to get free information. No, that's not typically the case. The internet is full of free information. So when they're coming in, nobody wants to spend an hour and a half to talk to an attorney to get free information. Sorry. It's just not, I don't buy it. They can get it LegalZoom. They can watch a YouTube video. I mean, the free information is obscene out there in this day and age. But something you said, because most of our listeners do come from referral-based businesses, and this is a very, 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 very true thing. We've done many studies over the past 20 years on this. If they believe that it's $500 for your products or for your service, and it's really $5,000, and they came from a referral source, this is an amazing opportunity for you to go back to the referral source, take them to lunch, thank them for all the referrals they're sending to, and say, all right, we have a disconnect here. Let's talk about, tell me what you believe about my process, my services, and what you believe that my fees are. And this is always transformative, because a referral source like, actually, I have no idea what the hell your process is. And I had no idea the difference between a $500 will and a 9,000 asset protection trust, and what discerns the line of delineation there. So it's an opportunity for you to take that referral source actually through your process and educate them. And 100%, I have proof of concept of this. And if you want to ping me and ask me for names of attorneys that have proof of this, I'll let you call them and interview them. This transforms them, because when that referral source goes through it, they're typically the ones that are telling the client, oh, call Joe. I think it's about $500 for a will. And they don't know, they're just pulling a number out of thin air. But how it lands for the client is, well, my financial advisor told me not to pay a penny over $500, which is not what the financial advisor says. So use it as an opportunity for a relationship review. Go back and reconnect with that person, which they'll probably become one of your greatest referral sources. And my recommendation is offer to put them through your process for no charge, so they can experience it. And then that will completely nip that whole situation right away.
Yeah, because ideally, if they're a referral, they know how much, a range of what you charge. So if that person doesn't know, I think it is really powerful to say, like, because it's upsetting for the person that they're referring if they're expecting it to be a certain price and it's very much not that. It's upsetting for everybody involved.
Sure.
So, including the person you referred, like, oh, sorry, I just wasted your time referring someone that you can't afford.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm always a huge fan of anybody refers, like, send a gift at a minimum, like a gift card of some sort.
Yeah, that's a little tricky thing in the legal space. So they're probably all going wild right now, but they know if you don't have some kind of process in regards to thank you and acknowledgement, we can definitely do another separate podcast on that. But yeah, most of our attorneys, you do want to minimum send an email, send a thank you note, and take them to lunch. That again is not a gift it's actually being deeply curious about their business and seeing how the two of you can work together.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah. So I know we went long. We could talk for days and days and days about all this. I know you have a gift for our listeners. Tell us what you would like to leave for our listeners today, Alesha.
Yeah. So I have a video that covers the 6 sneaky sales mistakes that are killing your business. And it's just real quick. I think it's 8 minutes. And then I also have sales value emails that I send every day. I'm not selling anything in them. They're just helpful emails on the sales meeting, and Molly can attest she gets them, so they're not annoying salesy emails.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier today, about one that I got this week in regards to giving value to your existing clients, referral sources, and or PNCs, prospective new clients, and just doing something for them of value and not charging them. And I love that, because when that came in my email in the morning, I actually had a call with a past client, and that had a one quick question, and it shifted my energy from, oh my God, are they going to suck the life out of me and my time and try to get as much as they can for not paying me, to really being like, how can I show up of value? And I can tell you that the client was seriously in tears by the end of it was a 15-minute one quick question call that they scheduled. And at the end, they said to me, how can I pay you for your time today? And I said, absolutely not. Just tell people what I did for you, and I always welcome referrals. And it felt so good, and your email was so timely. And I was sharing with Alesha, they're just booster shots. They're, like she said, she's not selling anything. There's no crazy pictures and banners and everything. It's black and white text, about a paragraph, maybe 2 paragraphs. And I always look for them every single day of how I can just one small step at a time really be able to enhance my, I'm going to use the word, sales process.
Yeah, if you're not selling, you can't help anyone. So I think we like to think of ourselves as people that help people. We do good things for our clients. But if you don't sell them, you're never going to help a single person.
Yeah, indeed. And we are all helpers here that are listening. So I'm going to have down in the show notes, link to aleshabahr.com, how to stay connected with Alesha, how to get her 6 sneaky sales mistakes killing your business videos, and in regards to joining her daily value sales tips and techniques that she sends out via email. And Alesha, thank you so much for being our guest today. I know how much you have personally helped me and many people in our mastermind group.
Thank you so much, Molly. I loved being on. I really appreciate you having me.
Indeed. Okay, folks, that is a wrap. So thanks again for listening to us, and we hope that you become a frequent listener. As I said, I will have in the show notes how to stay connected with Alesha and get some of her amazing gifts that she's offering to us today. And thank you for being a Hiring and Empowering Solutions podcast listener, where a legal dream team really is possible and can come true. Until next time.